Hello and welcome to the Procurement Podcast, brought to you by BizClick and our sponsors for this series, Amazon Business. This is your go-to podcast for all things procurement. If you're ready to move from being a tactical buyer to a strategic leader, you're in the right place. Tune in and together we can build a better bottom line. I'm Aaron McMillan, editor of Procurement Magazine and your host for this podcast series.
Welcome back to the Procurement Magazine podcast. I am your host and senior editor of Procurement Magazine and Supply Chain Digital, Aaron McMillan. Today, we are joined by a global leader whose career truly defines the phrase from the shop floor to the boardroom. He started his journey on a Peugeot assembly line in the 90s, and today he oversees a nearly $1 billion global spend across 6 continents. He has led massive transformation programs from industrial giants, driven sustainability initiatives across hundreds of global sites, and is currently the Vice President of Global Procurement at International Container Terminal Services. When he isn't transforming, he is teaching the next generation of leaders as a senior lecturer at TBS Education. Please welcome to the Procurement Magazine podcast, Damien Huppert. Hi, Damien. How's it going?
Hi, Aaron. Going very well. Thank you. Thank you for your very kind words and your introduction. Appreciate that.
No, my pleasure. You're the one who's worked that career. We're just stating the facts here. So thanks so much for joining us today. Really looking forward to our conversation. Just wondering if we could start by telling me how you got involved in kind of working in the world of procurement. Was it a dream of yours? Did you kind of fall into it? Just tell me about your journey in.
Well, actually, the way I got into it was through the angle of the supply chain. By training, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I very shortly after my graduation looked into specializing in supply chain management. So my background really comes through supply chain management, which then after 2 jobs in the field of supply chain morphed into the world of procurement, which basically came naturally because working in supply chain for so many years, you have to interact with your customers, with your suppliers, and you have to appreciate the importance of the partnerships you set up and you live through. And definitely that has been a natural evolution for me, and I've been enjoying it very much since.
Do you enjoy that kind of personal aspect, those relationship buildings that, is fundamental to the world of procurement and supply chains?
I do, and I also believe it is a strategic angle I'm trying to convey to my teams. I always give my teams the message that it has to be of the utmost importance, and the suppliers enjoy doing business with us. It comes a time where choices have to be made. It comes a time where priorities have to be decided upon. And when you've established not only that business relationship, but also that personal relationship, when you ask that supplier to come and fix an equipment at midnight on a Saturday night, when you have established that connection, you know that it's going to happen. You're going to make it through. So yes, I think that having this beyond the true business partnership that we are all aiming to get to, I think also getting to that personal connection is very important. Not that it needs to supersedes the business fundamentals of doing business, right? It cannot be based on friendships or anything like that. But I do believe that personal touch is of importance.
Yeah, of course. The personal touch is of the utmost importance. It's vital to understand, the people behind the business and, how they're all, like you said, working together to pull in the same kind of the same direction. If I was to start a new kind of supplier partnership tomorrow, what would you kind of say would be the priority to me to get out kind of straight away out of the relationship? How do I set about making sure that it's a long-term success and we're partners for years and years to come?
Well, obviously, building the trust is what we all ultimately want to get to, and to build that trust, it needs to be based on built upon short-term successes. Definitely, we cannot be shooting for the moon. So it's also accepting that we start. I would not say it's small, but that we start practical and pragmatic. Some cases. Some businesses want to engage with us. Let's make it global. Let's make it global. Well, I'd say, how about we start with a very strong local success story and we'll grow from there. Give it a chance and don't shoot for the stars just right, just right. Just, give it a try, give it some time, and when things are right, things will happen.
I was wondering if we could go back to the start. So, in the 90s, you're working at Peugeot on this assembly line, and now you find yourself as a global VP. How has those early factory floor experiences kind of shaped the person you are that now leads procurement at such
It,
scale?
right. To me, it's essential. It's vital. To me, it was a blessing to be given that chance as a young graduate to work the assembly line back in Coventry in the UK. To understand that the it all happens there. To understand the consequences of design decision, be it product design, being supply chain design, being organization designs, being HR and social design. That's a blessing that one should never forget throughout one's career. That it the truth is on the shop floor. The truth is on the berth in my current industry. This is where it happens. Until you understand what are the business constraints, what are the operational challenges, and how do you define success from the ground up, then you're basically missing the target altogether. So it's been instrumental, and I was blessed to get that opportunity, truly.
I have to ask, how did you end up in Coventry? Was it a case that you were offered that as a job?
It was an internship actually, and an alumni from my university happened to work at that facility. Reached out to him, and he offered me that chance, and I was very fortunate to be able to work through it. Definitely.
Our last guest on the podcast kind of spoke similar. She started a career as a food buyer, and she found herself in her early career kind of on the floor as well, working in kitchens, kind of working the jobs in which she kind of oversees today. We spoke about kind of the empathy that develops. Is that something that is that a kind of skill that you have, which kind of makes you such a successful leader that you've been in the shoes of the people you oversee now?
It doesn't matter where you stand, where you sit in the organization. Some people might describe it as how high you stand in the organization ladder, however you want to call it. Everyone in the organization has a business sense, whether it is based on strong academic background, whether it is just a gut feeling. Most of the impressions I got from a business is actually talking to people on the ground, and that also is a key advantage where when you perform some supplier visits, call it supplier audits or supplier partnerships, but when you walk the shop floor at a supplier, and when you get that chance to, and excuse my joke here, but when you get your chance to perform that visit without the salespeople, just talking to the technicians, talking to the engineering manager, and now you start hearing it. You start hearing what are the facts, what is the truth, and it gives you not only obviously in some cases some commercial leverage, which is always good to have when you are entering negotiations, but it also gives you a very good understanding of what are the actual businesses challenges that the business is facing. And yes, call it empathy if you want, Aaron. I'm very happy with that description, but it's also an appetite to understand what is at the root of an organization, be it its success or be it its challenges. So yes, I think to make that connection and to make sure that you understand how it might impact, good or bad, the relationship you're trying to build with a supplier here.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's absolutely vital that you're down there talking to your staff and understanding, the day-to-day operations, what's working, what's not working. Because without that, you're just not going to find success in your operation, are you?
You're not. And you've mentioned very kindly that I happen also to lecture at the Toulouse Business School in France in the executive MBA program. And in this day and age where everything is AI this, AI that, I do insist that you can't perform supplier visits or supplier audits through AI. You cannot have an agent do that for you. You cannot rely on ChatGPT output, as good as it might be, you cannot rely on that to actually build that connection. So what I'm conveying as a message to students or to staff members is get out there, walk the shop floor, talk to the people, engage. And although I'm convinced that AI will have a very strong positive impact to the world of procurement in the months to come, nothing replaces this connection that we are trying to build here.
I think you're absolutely right. AI has its place. It's doing a lot of good already, but you can't have that same relationship with an AI agent as you can with a person, speaking to them, understanding them, being a sounding board for them. It's like you said, it's important that we get out there and we speak to one another. We understand the issues, the successes, and then we can all kind of learn from that, grow from that, and bring success to our own operation. I'm glad you brought up the lecturing stuff. I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit more about that. Was that something you kind of always had your eye on? Did you always want to get into teaching, or did you, again, kind of fall into it? Just tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, no, it grew on me. It was not something I had set my goals on, but when you've been lucky enough and fortunate to have had very inspiring teachers, and that, not only business school, not only engineering school, but sometimes even high school or even middle school, it throughout our lives, we've had, in some cases, and I hope that was the same for you, Aaron, but we've had some opportunities, that drove you into journalism, that drove me into procurement. We've had that opportunity of people who clearly inspired us. And it actually, I might sound selfish, but it feels good to share. And it feels good to open people's minds and to share our experiences and successes and maybe less successes. But that's something that at some point in my career, I thought, no, it brings a fulfilling sentiment that, yes, it's kind of circling back. And that's what I think is very important. Now, the icing on the cake when it comes to teaching is that you go into this as, I want to share, I want to give. And as usual, totally unexpected, you learn a lot. You get back from your students. You give them case studies. You ask them to choose a case study. And basically, you keep learning from people who might be 20 years younger than you, but who have had internship opportunities or job opportunities or just curiosity, and who bring back a lot. And I've learned in the last few years, what I've learned in supply chain, a lot came from the students at Toulouse Business School. So I'm very fortunate for that.
You're absolutely right. Those teachers that we encounter throughout our lives kind of shape who we are and where we are in our career. I couldn't agree more, echo what you said. Like, I've had teachers who've kind of shaped me and put me where I am today. So what's been your favorite moment so far of being a lecturer?
It's really being challenged by the students, being exposed to their experiences, and trying to make them realize that they were actually living on the verge of living an exciting career. When we talk about one example that immediately comes to mind is grocery orders for supermarkets now being fully automated from warehouses to your local grocery store. This is not something I've been involved personally through my career because I'm not in that industry. And all I've learned about that aspect was through students who exposed me to that. So it was definitely kind also of a I would say turning point, as these are the type of things that you might read about, that you might hear about, but when you are finally given that opportunity to dive into it and to measure its impact, that's a turning point. So that's what I've enjoyed.
This podcast is in partnership with Amazon Business. Amazon Business is your one-stop destination for everything your organization needs. Think of it as the Amazon you already know and love, but specifically re-engineered for the way you work. Amazon Business gives you access to business-only pricing on millions of items and quantity discounts that scale with your growth. It's about spending less time bogged down in those manual tasks and more time on what really matters. So head over to Amazon Business and make the power of Amazon work for you.
It's so great to hear that you've had those continual learning experience, especially from your students. Something I wanted to talk to you about as well is obviously in your role, you've overseen kind of transformation. You've overseen the rollout of new software, kind of transforming software.
Yeah.
I think a lot of companies are now kind of, weighing up that transformation, introducing that new piece of procurement technology that's going to reshape how they work,
Sure.
But with that, there's probably some anxiety, some apprehension. So,
Yeah.
what would kind of be your secret to getting teams worldwide to actually kind of adopt a new software instead of, being hesitant of it?
In the last transformations I've been involved with, the common takeaway that always came back, the question that very often comes back, the question is, how did you choose the timing of it? When is the right time to start engaging either on a reorganization or on a cost-saving program, or as you say, in a new technology introduction? And when you mention anxiety here, Aaron, I think a lot of it is, when should I start? My answer to that is now. Waiting is not the answer. Waiting for the perfect moment means that you will never get started, because there's never a perfect time to get started. So when it comes to anxiety of when, the answer is now. If you are asking yourself the question, that means you need to do it. The next question about how to embark, usually the anxiety that comes along is, will I be losing my job? It's something that you cannot escape the question. The question will come. Will I be? And that's something you need to have a strong plan in mind. That's a natural anxiety that you need to anticipate, that you need to address, that you need to come up with an answer that is actually going to be a motivation for an organization. And then on the how, well, either you have the resources internally, either you go with the support of some consulting company who can accompany you along the way. Both ways would work perfectly fine. That's the how is usually the easiest part, I would think, at least from my experience. Understanding that you should be doing this for the right reasons. You should not be, upgrading your whatever ERP system just for the sake of it because it sounds cool. There should be a strong business motivation behind it. Otherwise, yes, if it doesn't make sense, then obviously it will fail. But it's still something that the when and the how will it impact me are the two questions that needs to be addressed from day one. The rest will follow.
And if we can even pull back on that kind of even further, you've been known to kind of build global procurement functions from the ground up. For anyone listening who may be going through something similar, what is one thing you wish you knew before you got started?
When it comes to procurement, I'll go back to the very basics here. Look at your spend. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel for you. You're not going to get the magic wand here in your podcast, Aaron, today. I'm very sorry about that.
We tried.
You tried, but my answer would be look at your spend. And then you can start having the opportunity to build your category strategy, how you build category management. How do you want to make it a more global organization or a more local organization? Meaning, do you want to have it a more of a centralized organization, or more of a decentralized organization? But really stick to the basics. What is it you spend? What are the opportunities to structure it? And by structure, I don't necessarily mean, consolidating your volume, because for some categories, it doesn't make any sense to consolidate your volume at a global level. So it's really look at what you spend, understand how you spend, and what is the supplier landscape out there. Some categories, there is no supplier landscape other than a monopolistic situation you might be facing. So that would be, really going back to the basics and accepting what the spend analysis tells you, not being in a catastrophic state because you end up in a monopolistic situations with a supplier. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is. And then work around that. But that would be my answer.
I think it's a very good answer. You see when new managers come in or someone takes over a team, 9 times out of 10, that's what they do. They take it back to basics. They work from the ground up because, if your foundation isn't there, you're not going to see success. You can't add those drivers of change, those things that make you different from your competitors. If you don't have that strong foundation, those basics kind of set about and instilled in your team. So, I think it's a kind of good way to look at it. Let's walk before we can run, I think you said.
Right. And if I may add another dimension that to me it's vital when you want to set up an organization is to make sure that whoever you report to, whether it is the CFO, the head of operations, whether it is the CEO of the company, making sure that he or she understands what procurement is about. And that to me, and that needs to be aligned from the start. If the perception is that it's only about negotiating low price, then obviously you would run into problems at some point. So really understanding that some aspects might be, might have a quick win in front of them. Some aspect would need to have more midterm to long-term investment. That's I wouldn't say a word of caution, but that would be my piece of advice before you engage into such exciting opportunity that is to build a procurement organization. So that's definitely my piece of advice there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Damien. So we've built our procurement function, and like you said, we need to define what it is because often or not, procurement is kind of branded as, a roadblock, some red tape, people who just control the money.
Right.
If I'm in that organization, in my procurement function, I have this kind of reputation, How do I win over those skeptical stakeholders who see me as nothing more than a roadblock?
Right. Well, first of all, you need to choose your battles. You cannot win everybody's heart right away. So you need to start building your success stories as soon as you can with the right stakeholders. And then the second thing is time will play in your favor if you play along the right rules. They will, unfortunately, in the real world, there will be some supplier or some companies who have some financial trouble. So if people are not happy because in your accreditation process or your onboarding process, you have some financial health check that, as you say, might be seen as a red tape or obstacle, well, time will unfortunately gift you with a supplier who goes bankrupt because that happens. And then if you've done your work well enough and if you've managed to screen out those suppliers, then time will play in your favor by highlighting the importance of your processes. Likewise, the famous 3-bid rules. Yes, it takes a little more time, but it only takes, a couple of tenders to realize that applying this rule is actually a great way of delivering value to the company. Not necessarily talking about price, by the way, but can be lead time, can be warranty, can be services, can be training. And for those who are only listening to the money element, for sure it will also deliver money. So sticking to your principles, sticking to the basics will, at some point, ideally rather sooner than later, I wouldn't say prove them wrong, but will win them over.
And more just looking into your kind of experience, you've worked in the energy sector, you're specifically in wind energy, which has seen massive evolution over the last few years.
Yeah.
What did that tech teach you about building supply chains for kind of rapidly evolving future focused industries, where we find ourselves today?
It comes with a challenge, specifically when, let's call them at the time anyway, let's call them disruptive industries, be it the beginning of a new step and the beginning of wind, beginning of solar, and I'm sure we can think of other examples. It comes with challenges where you need to work twice as hard into your sourcing efforts to find the right suppliers who are willing to bet on your business. Because in many cases, those suppliers that you want to do business with, they've been happily doing business for other industries. And then it comes back to what we were mentioning earlier. It's double the work, but it's also creating that connection and showing that growth opportunity, because if you talk disruption, you imply growth opportunity. So that's definitely something that you need to work double hard. But that's what procurement here can also show and demonstrate its value, because the company cannot grow without suppliers, right? So we need to find the right partners who would believe in that end goal. And because because it is new, because it is a disruption, then yes, it requires double the effort.
Would you say that kind of showing that willingness to go the extra mile, to put that effort in, is kind of what is behind making those suppliers kind of bet on you?
Yeah, they need to have that appetite to actually, which doesn't necessarily lie with everyone, but then that risk appetite and that growth appetite needs to be there.
Well, I wonder if we could take it back to your kind of lecturing. You've obviously spoke a lot about how your students teach you. I was wondering if there's been, what's been the biggest misconception maybe young professionals or even your fellow staff members have about procurement, before they either enter the workforce or kind of observing it from afar. What's the kind of the biggest misconception that you're busting about procurement to both young people and perhaps people you work alongside?
I'm not sure I've faced misconceptions. I think I've been able to open their eyes to the world of procurement. So I'm not sure I'll be the one busting that misconception, but it's probably the misconception is that procurement is only about price, which it isn't. That would be the one.
Yeah, it's so much more than that. And then to kind of flip that around, we've spoken around a little bit more about how you're encouraging kind of students to get out there, be personable. Would you say that is kind of the number one skill that you're teaching them, or is there another thing that's kind of like, if you only take one thing from my lessons, this should be it?
Am I allowed to say Excel as well? I
Of
mean,
course.
yes, yeah, I don't want to make it sound like it's only a human to human and that everything will follow through. No, you need to have some discipline. You need to know how to make a cost breakdown, hence the Excel analogy here. And you need to also be strong enough on the financial side. So it's finding the perfect mix here.
Mm, absolutely. And you may have already been asked this question by perhaps one of your students, but I was wondering if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice before you started your career, what would it be?
Look, I've received so much good pieces of advice that I feel very fortunate here. But the one piece of advice would be, you know, never say no to an opportunity. It's catch it, make the most out of it. Don't be afraid.
I think they're really, really good words to live by. Let's get out there. Let's take all opportunities we get with both hands, and let's see where it takes us. You're not going to get anywhere from saying no to these opportunities, are you? Because the next person will say yes, and off they go, and you're kind of left behind a little bit, aren't you?
There you go.
Exactly. Something we like to do on the podcast is we like to get leaders speaking to one another. We like to get them to
Okay.
ask questions. So our speaker question from our previous guest was, will AI and technology erode the requirements for in-house procurement teams moving forward?
I can comfortably say no. It will allow my team to do more and to do it faster. But like I'm teaching it to my own kids, and like my kids are teaching it to me, to be more precise, and like I'm trying to make sure my team is fully aware. AI is only as good as what you've taught AI to do, and AI is only as good as what is your strategy. So yes, to do redlining of contracts, it will help. Yes, to do a market analysis, it will help. Yes, to optimize your transactions internally in your system, it will help. So the use cases are numerous. I'm not sure if they are infinite, but there are numerous use cases. But understanding it is the number one challenge to unlock that power. So will it erode the work of internal procurement team? Absolutely not, in my view. But then I think ignoring it would be the second biggest mistake.
Like you said, it's all about striking that balance. It's kind of been the theme of this conversation. It's about striking that balance between the human knowledge, the human touch with those AI proficiencies that kind of give you a step up and can make you and your function better.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer, Damien. And then I want to give you the opportunity to pay that forward. So if you want to ask any question for our next guest, it can be anything at all.
The last couple of months have unfortunately shown us how unstable and uncertain the world can be in some situations. My question to my next speaker, that's the question I've been asking myself, but I'm sure your viewers would be interested in hearing it from your next speaker as well. How does this period of uncertainty be an opportunity or a challenge for your procurement organization? Does it challenge your organization? Does it weaken your organization? And that's something to reflect upon, I think.
Yeah, a really interesting subject, especially looking at kind of both sides, the opportunities it presents as well as the challenges, there could be some kind of positives that come out of kind of the extreme stress that organizations find themselves under. Well, Damien, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed your insight. Before we let you go, we always like to finish with 3 quick fire questions. So
All right.
I'm going to ask you something, and I just want you to say the first thing that comes to mind, okay?
Let's go.
So what's the most exciting thing about the future of procurement?
Uncertainty.
What is one thing people still get wrong about procurement?
It's not about price.
What piece of technology we rely on now will be obsolete in 5 years?
Let's hope it will be Excel.
Excel is definitely the most popular answer on the podcast, so really might see the end of it. Although I think someone else has said to me that they never think Excel will go away, so I'm kind of
No, that's why I say let's hope, because I'm a realistic guy and I know it will not.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Damien. Well, thank you again so much for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. Thanks for answering our question. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Aaron, thank you very much for having me. I'm glad we had that opportunity and I hope it will inspire others.
Perfect. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Procurement Magazine podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for another insightful episode. We'll see you then.